like happy Saturn's Day, happy Saturday. I want to talk about why you may not be resonating with some of the information that is available on social media, like astrology sources right now, about like recovering energy and gaining momentum and feeling focused or aligned or whatever, because I am tired. And I feel like that is still super aligned for many reasons. And I wanted to look at those reasons through a astrological day and hour, but like primarily day, just to like hit every planet and show why like everybody's sleepy right now. um, but also through a dispositor lens, because I feel like that shows really clearly like what is going on for these planets. So let's get the notebook out. The big note paper. I do not know if this is even in like camera. We will see. This is my shorthand for the week. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. F is Friday and A is Saturday. So Sunday is the sun's day. Monday is moon's day. Tuesday is Mars's day. Wednesday is Mercury's day. Thursday is Jupiter's day. Friday is Venus's day. And Saturday is Saturn's day. So right now, and I am not saying that, you wake up on Sunday and because sun is not resourced appropriately by its ruler every Sunday for the next month, you're going to be tired. That's not what I'm saying. Am I saying that's what I do? Yes, but I'm not saying that that's true for you or that you need to buy into that level of delusion. However, I have found it helpful over the past many weeks to be going through the week and basically get to a Thursday and be like, oh my God, why? And then just remember that, like, how is Jupiter doing? How has been Jupiter been doing since last May? Okay, we are tired, and that is okay. Thursday can be a holy rest day, that kind of thing. So right now, Sun is in Taurus, 0 degrees Taurus. And where is Sun's ruler? Sun's ruler is Venus in Pisces, who is about to go into Aries for the second time, and then won't leave Aries until June 5th, and has been doing what she's been doing essentially since January 2nd of this year. Okay? And so the overall message, the overall vibe that we have from the sun, and the kind of food and nutrients and nutrition and inspiration and daydreaming that sun may be able to get from Venus, if at all, because the angle is a little bit off, even though the signs are talking to each other for the next few days. The overall vibe we're getting is we're tired, okay? We're sleepy, and we've been doing this since January, and we have until June to go. Like, this is not this is not the time to get up and go after it. You know what I mean? This is no get up and go oomph pizzazz. We are in it for the long haul, and if we're in it for the long haul, we have to like measure our resources. So anyway, that is how Sun is doing. How is Moon doing? Out of anybody, I feel like Moon is doing the best. And so, like, maybe Mondays in this schema would be kind of the most pleasant that we have going on lately because Mars is no longer in Cancer, which means Moon, who is ruler of the cardinal sign Cancer and wants to, like, nurture and nourish you and care for you and comfort you and provide you with some kind of emotional support. And Mars, who like is not okay with that kind of onslaught and like does not know how to respond to it, Mars has been in Cancer since September 4th of 2024 Okay, so if your tiredness began then, we'll get to that on Mars's day, okay? But, Moon's tiredness as well has been acting up since September because Moon has been trying, as long as she's been in aspect, which is going to change every like 2 days, as long as she's in aspect to Cancer and to Mars, like Moon would have been trying to support Mars, which would have been a bit of a drain because we have this planet in fall there. So out of everybody in the sky right now, I feel like Moon is doing the best because the like overstayed house guest that like did not want to be there, try as you might to help and support, was just like, please get me out of here. They're gone. So even though you had no problem with them being there and like it's totally fine they're there and they were no trouble, it is still a freshening and a lightening, like for you, the host, who can like kind of put it down. So I feel like Moon is doing okay, but Moon is going to change how she's kind of doing based on where she is in the whole chart, because if Moon, and like we'll get to all this, um, but we can start making this chart now, this table, right? Sun is in Taurus, and so is Uranus, and that's going to go to Venus. What else is going to go to Venus? Anything in Libra. Is there anything in Libra right now? No. So that's fine. But every time that Moon is in Taurus or Libra, Moon is going to try and get resource from Venus. And like, how is Venus doing right now? Venus is tired. Venus has been doing the same jazz since January of this year. She keeps talking to Saturn. Like, we can talk about this chart here. Venus first moved into Pisces January 2nd, and then has just been slowly going back and forth through Pisces and Aries, gets into free ground and is in new Aries degrees after May 16th, but is still in detriment in Aries. Like, she doesn't do well in this sign regardless of the retrograde. And so she importantly gets out of Aries, but also importantly gets into Taurus, her own sign, in June 5th. Meanwhile, while all of this has been happening, exhausting in its own right because it's Aries and exhausting in its own right because it's a retrograde, she has had 3 contact points with super tiring, super limiting, super exhausting Saturn. So this is very tiring. We're very tired. So anytime Moon is in Taurus or Libra, we can assume until kind of June 5th-ish, the Moon's going to be very tired. You know what I mean? Okay, so then we can look at Cancer, because we're talking about Moon, and that's going to go to Moon, and we're okay right now because nobody's in Cancer, so that's nice. And we've done the like frisking, like whatever Mars came in to like do some deep investigative work to be like, who does not belong within the Cancer space right now, within the nutritive, you're deserving of my time and energy, you're deserving of, you know, the sharing of resources that is nurturing something, whether that be an idea or in a relationship or whatever your Cancer house themes are. That's gone. That's been cleared out by Mars's prolonged stay. And now we get like this freshening, this little breather space before Jupiter moves in June. So that'll be very exciting. We can also look at, well, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. So let's get there now. Mars, Tuesdays. How are we feeling on a random Tuesday lately? Well, prior to this week, Mars was still in Cancer, and this would have made him tired. Now, Mars is in Leo, which is still part of his retrograde path, and we still have a number 3 Pluto opposition coming up. And so the like story I've been telling myself about this Cancer Leo stuff with Mars and people being like, he's back in Leo, fire signs, energy, heat, yes, spirituality. Like, okay, he's exhausted. Why? It's like you went to work and you got started and you started to like power up your computer and like check your emails, and then you got called in to like a creative meeting or into like a therapy session, or that was actually a dream and you weren't getting ready for work. Now you're in some kind of weird dream that you have to process your emotions from when you were 12. And so you're doing all that and you're taking the time, and whoever is in the room with you is like not letting you leave until you like actually dig through the emotional work and figure out what is worth fighting for, what is worth like your action. And this is exhausting and it's taking forever. And then you turn around and then you leave that dream and then you actually have to go and start your work day, which until you catch up to where you were in the dream is going to be super disorienting. Like there's no way around it. But then the entire time you're at work, you're still like, oh, what a day. And it's not till you get like a whole new shift in scenery from what you've been dealing with for the past like 24 hours. That is when you might feel like, okay, now I can move on. And so, in my little analogy, you going to work the first time was moving into Leo. And then the dream and being like, okay, we actually have to work through this and it's going to take a really long time. That was the retrograde back into Cancer, stationing in Cancer, and coming out of Cancer. Now we're back at work. That's us right now. Mars is back in Leo. Yay! We're not in the dream nightmare anymore. We're just at work. And until we get to a new phase in work or whatever it is, maybe you went home and you like started the mom wears this, dad wears that. Do you know where this is? What's for dinner? I need this for school, whatever. The stuff when you got home, and then you're like, okay, I actually forgot something, and you had to leave, and it was super draining, and it just took way longer and way more out of you than you thought it should. And now you actually have to come back in and still start, like, still have all of this onslaught of, like, can you help me? Can you provide this? Tell me about that. Like, you get no downtime because you're just thrown right back into it. This is the 0 to 6 degrees Leo that we find ourselves in the next few weeks until Mars leaves the post retrograde area and gets into new ground in Leo. And this part of my analogy is, but you're still at work. But you still have not gotten that change of scene that lets you like take a breather. Sure, this nightmare is behind you, but like the rest of the day that you have to like participate in is still ahead of you. And so this is us with Mars in Leo until he moves into Virgo June 17. Okay? So we are tired. We are tired because we are still in our retrograde. We are tired because we just came out of the sign of our fall. We are tired on Tuesdays because we have an impending and like super hyped up third Pluto opposition while being square to our ruler, the sun, which is a little bit better than being whatever we happen to be to Moon, who is always somewhere different, which is maybe one of the reasons Mars does so badly in Cancer, is because there is no like steady, like, this is what I can expect. Even if it's sporadic, I know I can expect this. Because it's just always all over the place in every metric you can imagine, because Moon is going to be all over anyway. So this is exhausting. And then, yeah, sure, we get out of the retrograde phase, but we're still in Leo. Like, we're still in this zone that we've been hanging out in, if we're just talking Leo, since November of 2024. That's too long. So anyway, we're exhausted, we're bored, we have no patience for what's happening, we have no patience to like give our patience to something because we just gave it all to what was happening internally or like nutritively within ourselves during the Cancer stint of the retrograde. So, if we want to look at Leo because of what Mars is going through or because of the domain of the Sun, we're going to look to the Sun, which is going to look to Venus. Okay, and now let us go to Mercury. Where's Mercury now? Mercury is at, well, he's at 2 degrees now of Aries, which means if we wanted to look at how Mercury was doing, we would look at Mars. And what we know is that Mars is tired. Mars then would look to the Sun, who would look to Venus. And we know that Venus is tired. Okay? Mercury is tired in his own right as well, because Mercury just came out of a retrograde season. And Mercury's retrograde also involved a place where he was tired. It was Pisces. And he's still not out of that retrograde season. He leaves it April 26th. But similar to my analogy here with Mars, Mercury leaves the retrograde path, but he's still in Aries, a place that he has been in for the first time since March 3rd, and he'll leave Aries for the last time May 10. That's 2 months of just like the same flavor, which is not Mercury's vibe whatsoever. He rules 2 mutable signs, same flavor is like not on his menu. To compare how harsh this 2 months of one sign experience, 2 months of Aries, and like really this whole thing has been going on since February 14th of 2025, and we could say it goes to May 10 because that's when he first entered Pisces. So it's like just the same 2 flavors, Pisces and Aries, for 3 months for Mercury. That's too much. This is exhausting. Like to keep participating and maintaining even a modicum of interest in this scenario, because we move into Taurus on May 10th. And why would we not be like, oh, yay, thank Mercury, thank Hermes that we're free from Aries and now we can get our pet back? Why? Because Venus will then be in Aries and she will be tired. She'll be even more tired than she is right now. And so we want to look at either who changes first. Does Venus come out of Aries, or does Mercury change into the next sign, which happens to be his own sign of Gemini? What happens first? Mercury moves into Gemini May 25, and Venus moves into Taurus June 5th. And so we have a better chance of looking for like some pep in Mercury's step, or to be like ready to go after it on any given Wednesday by May 25. If it happens earlier for you, fantastic. If it doesn't and you're feeling a lot of pressure and shame because your pep is not back in your step, I mean, don't start that shame clock at all if you can, but start at May 25th if you can, if that's possible for you. And then let's compare. So Mercury moves into Taurus May 10th and then moves into Gemini May 25th. That's 15 days in one sign compared to 3 months. That's 6 times the amount of time spent just hanging out Pisces, Aries for Mercury as he's going to spend in Taurus. And so this has been excruciating. So if you are over it and you don't really have the resources to keep pretending that you're not as over it as you are, here to validate that, okay? Now let's look at how Jupiter's doing. We can just take a moment here to also check, because if we were in Aries like Mercury is today, we would want to go to Mars, who is in Leo, who is in so Mars to Leo, Sun to Taurus, or Sun in Taurus, back to Venus. Okay, so now we can go to Jupiter. What is going on with Jupiter? Jupiter is a Gemini, which makes Jupiter tired. Okay, sleep E. Jupiter has been here since May 25 of 2024. Okay, 25th of May 2024. So yes, we are almost out of the retrograde. We leave the retrograde path April 30th. This is not as big a deal for Jupiter as it is for the other planets, because this is a hyper regular occurrence for Jupiter. It's every year. There's a section of every sign or a section of travel that is going to be retrograded over. It's just part of like the ebb and flow of the greater planets, of the farther planets. But we do get into new Gemini degrees that we have not been in for like the past 12 years. So that's a little bit exciting. April 30th, and then we finally move into Cancer, which not only is nice because we're moving out of Gemini, a sign of our fall and detriment, but we're moving into Cancer, a sign of our exaltation. Similar to waiting for Venus to not only move out of Aries, a place she doesn't want to be, but move into Taurus, a place she really does want to be. Like, this is a mirror of that. We are moving in to Cancer on June 9th, okay? So if you are super tired until then, I got you. I get it. This moving into new degrees in Gemini April 30th. So the entirety of May and then the first week of June, we're going to be in new Gemini degrees. I'll leave it up to you whether that's exciting or whether that is already knowing you don't have the energy to deal with any new stuff that's coming in the same flavor of what you've been dealing with since May. Because it's going to be new degrees, so it's like the same themes as your Gemini house, wherever that is. Um, but now, especially since Gemini is ruled by Mercury, who has just gone through a retrograde and himself is coming into like some new understanding, some new degrees, some new adventures. Um, you know, these new Gemini degrees that Jupiter is going to be going through, I will leave it up to you whether they are nutritive and interesting and intriguing and they fill you up or they inspire your curiosity, or if you feel like it's just like season 3 episodes where people are like, yeah, we know the characters, we know what they're going to be saying, it doesn't actually matter what they say as long as we hit the beats, and you're just too tired to even care about the writing or care about the acting or the delivery. You're just like, let's just get through it. Like, whatever it is, I understand. Rules Sagittarius and Pisces, which happens to be where Venus is. And so both of these places are going to be going to Jupiter, who is in Gemini, which is tiring. And Gemini and also Virgo, which is where the South Node is, which is also tiring, are going to be going to Mercury. And Mercury right now is in Aries, who goes to Mars, who goes to Sun, who goes to Venus, who goes to Jupiter, who goes to Mercury, who goes to Mars, who goes to Sun, who goes to Venus. So we're in a dispositor loop. And so far, nobody in this loop is someone who is really well supported. The most well supported person or planet in this whole affair is the Sun, because Sun is not actively in or coming out of a special circumstance like an eclipse or a retrograde or a triple conjunction with Saturn. And Sun is one of the only planets not actively experiencing some kind of detriment. So I know that right now Mercury is in Aries and is no longer in detriment in Pisces, but again, this is like the amount of time he's spending in Aries is almost his own detriment. And Venus is exalted, but she's about to move back into her own detriment, so that's going to be tiring. Mars has recently left Cancer, the sign of his fall, and he is set up well with a square to the Sun, to get some resources from the Sun. But again, he's got a lot going on, and the amount of time he's been spending in Leo, just similar to Mercury, is its own detriment. And so out of all these planets, the Sun is probably doing the best, like so far. Again, other than Moon, who Moon is going to do really well when Moon is in Cancer. And then maybe when Moon is with Sun or with Venus or even with Mars, Moon might be doing okay. But yeah, everybody's still tired. So, like, I wouldn't expect too much, you know? Okay, so now we can look at Venus. Venus right now is in Pisces, which is the sign of her exaltation. However, she is in her post retrograde shadow, so she has been dealing with what she's been dealing with, as I said, since January 2nd. And she's about to move back into the sign of her detriment, which is Aries. And so she just doesn't have the resources to act the way she would like to act here. So we're going to say it's just tiring. Like whatever else detriment or fall may mean, everybody's tired, okay? Um, and then, yes, she'll leave the retrograde path and she'll get to 11 degrees Aries and be in new ground, but she's still in Aries, which is still like a thumbs down downer. And so we're waiting for her to get into Taurus, which is going to be June 5th, and then she may feel kind of like extra empowered and extra nourished because she's going to be in her own earth sign, which is going to help nourish the body, especially after being through like the ringer of going through Pisces, exaltation, Aries, detriment, like back and forth with the Saturn aspects while there was eclipses happening. Like there was a lot going on. So it's okay to still be exhausted. Speaking of exhaustion, we can look at Saturn, who everybody talks about Saturn being planet of discipline and hard work and longevity. I do not have a disciplined Saturn. I have a neglect Saturn. Saturn is also neglect, ignoring things, disability, um, like labor and toil, endurance, limits, consequences. So, one thing I learned from Kira Sutherland through like medical astrology is that Saturn also represents like convalescence and rest. And Saturn having his joy in the 12th house, it's like that chronic health kind of, you can't sleep off everything. And the attitude of like, well, you'll sleep when you're dead, like you'll get there sooner if that's your attitude. And so, how is Saturn doing? Saturn is in Pisces in his pre retrograde area. So he's about to retrograde over what Venus just retrograded over. So you can make any kind of story you want about that, about Venus maybe coming through and doing some prep work about, like, okay, now you remember what I said about being compassionate and about patience and about surrender and about endurance. And then Saturn's going to come back over this area to kind of stabilize what got us through the Venus retrograde. Like, what actually helped you? What somatically made you interested enough to stay in your body to carry forward? Because Saturn is in Pisces right now, which is a fine place for him to be. He doesn't experience any like pluses or minuses there. He's square to ruler Jupiter, which is like bad for Jupiter, but it's good for Saturn. But he's about to move into Aries, which is the sign of his fall. And so the planet of our limits, of our endurance, of our ability and need to endure, is himself going to be put to his limit. So what are we supposed to do with that? Well, we're supposed to rest, and we're supposed to dream, and we're supposed to lean into all the practice we just had with Venus in her retrograde in the sign of her detriment, and Mercury in his retrograde in the sign of his fall, and Mars and his retrograde in the sign of his fall, and Jupiter and his year-long stay in the sign of his retrograde, while having, over the past 6 months, the Sagittarius and the Pisces Mercury retrogrades, which means that Jupiter is being resourced by Mercury, who is being resourced by Jupiter, and it creates a loop of exhaustion, which we had last December and this March, April. And Sun and Moon, which just came out of their eclipse seasons, and themselves, like Sun has been in Aries, which was disposited by Mars, who had no energy, and now Sun is in Taurus, being disposited by Venus, who has no energy. You know, we have practice with all of these planets from at least this spring, March and April, but potentially all the way from last fall, or even last spring and summer, or even further if like the Libra Aries eclipse axis like really impacted you. Um, the tools that we have been using to like make ourselves feel better and to make things worth it and to balance ourselves and to ground ourselves, and the things that legitimately fill us up when we hit our limits and we cannot go forward and we have no choice and we have no options. What those have taught us in the past either 2 months or the past year, that is all incredible information for us to use while Saturn is in Aries, which begins May 24 of this year, May 24, 2025, and technically ends April of 2028, when Saturn will just move straight into Taurus and then straight into Gemini and then straight into Cancer. And then we do another cusp retrograde dance in Leo and Virgo. But it's like we just got to get through this zone, which has been raked over by Venus and Mercury, and or prepped by them, soothed by them. You can assume that Mercury and Venus have already gone through this part of your life, of your chart, and selected like what actually matters, especially with Mars having been in Cancer and taking the time to be like, okay, what have I actually leaned into? And it's not that, okay, you can put that down now. We're out of retrograde. Everyone's moving forward. We can just move forward. That was all information. That was all practice, because the planet of our endurance and our limits is now going to experience endurance and limits. Yeah, with Saturn and Aries. So, that is my little doom message. you know, I'm not trying to doom anyone. I am trying to come from a place of compassion. And if you have been like personally victimized by the social media posts about these planets being out of retrograde, and even about Sun moving into Taurus, and like now we're free and like things are fresh, like they're not fresh. And it's okay to be like things are not fresh. Like what are you talking about? We are waiting for June. We are waiting for so many things to legitimately shift and to feel like we're looking at something new in June. So, like, truthfully, give it till July, is what I'm saying, until you start to feel like you're getting some energy back. Because Saturn, happy Saturn's Day, Saturn's messages, Saturn is about rest and convalescence. And again, via the medical astrology, it's like you have to rest for 3 times the amount of time that you were sick for, or whatever. Like, whatever kept you down. So if you've been tired since last May and this lasts until this June, like that was 1 year of being out, you're going to need like 3 years of recovery. And so, how do you lean into that? Well, you've got all these tools, you've done all this practice, and you've also been practicing with all these retrogrades, all these personal planets going through like cardinal Aries and Libra, like very relationship type stuff. Like you've gone through the pain points of standing up for yourself and how that might make other people feel bad, but like when you literally cannot, you literally cannot. And so that's what all this information is for. Because the world we're trying to build is one where you're allowed to rest, right? And the world we're trying to build requires that you are rested enough and nurtured enough and like nourished enough to be able to dream and to be able to daydream and to be able to like enter your mind palace and think about the future that you are like coming into, instead of just being dragged into, right? If you were too tired. And so we've got to respect if we are tired and we are being personally victimized by the like, now that we have our fire back, like I don't have it back. What are you talking about? Let me rest. Okay, like I feel like it is still very aligned to be exhausted and to be leaning into the things we've learned about exhaustion and learned about our capacity within exhaustion. Because it's like that was all the practice run. Every facet of ourselves is not going to be as overwrought in the future as it has been recently in the past, because it's going to be concentrated or magnified or demagnified, like however you look at it, from being Mars and Mercury and Jupiter and Venus to kind of just being Saturn for a couple years. And so, like, it's a beautiful time to lean into the compassion of your limits and that, like, you're not God and you can't do it all. And that's what makes you human. And your guides and your chart and your purpose and your destiny all have to respect that you are a human in a human body. And the future that we are trying to get to is one where you can rest even before you're tired, right? So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. Um, Today is April 19th, Saturday, and I wanted to just give like a touch point. I had released at the beginning of March kind of a like, this is what's on the menu until June. And so I'm just seeing a lot of posts about, yeah, like the shift in energy. And yeah, I felt to some shifts, but not like what people are talking about. And so if you are in that boat as well, welcome to my poorly videoed little explanation of why I feel like that is appropriate and why you should have compassion for it and not be blaming yourself if you are not ready like to run marathons and take over the world right now. And if instead you are consolidating your rest practice and trying to find more and more ways to like divest from the fear that of anything, like fear that we're not going to make it through, or fear that you're not going to have enough energy, or fear that it's going to get worse, because like it just got worse and we made it through that. You know what I mean? And so it's time to take all that information we just learned about making it through that, to make it through the recovery period of, now we're going to be processing making it through that, you know? Okay, thanks. Bye bye.